Okay, how many times have we all said, like, this is it, this is the week, I'm starting that new
This is
habit?
the time. This time is going to stick.
Right, but then life happens. So we're diving into Atomic Habits today
Love that book.
to figure out, with James Clear, like, what's the actual science behind making a change that lasts? Because it's got to be more than just willpower, right?
It's not about some magical burst of motivation, that's for sure. What I love about Clear is he compares it to compound interest.
Ooh, okay, like those tiny deposits that end up.
Huge returns,
Yeah.
but over time, right? So you're not going to get ripped overnight just because you hit the gym once.
It's about consistency, those small changes.
It's like, remember that analogy he uses? Heating an ice cube? You could be putting in effort, but it seems like nothing's happening for ages.
Yeah, hitting that plateau, like, is this even working?
Exactly, the plateau of latent potential, he calls it. But then you hit that magic 32 degrees.
And suddenly, puddle. It's like
Yeah.
magic, but it's not.
Your brain's literally rewiring itself, building those neural pathways, like carving a path through the snow. The more you walk it, the more defined it gets.
Hold on, is that why, like, when I was learning guitar, it felt like weeks of nothing?
Mm.
Then suddenly, boom, a chord.
Exactly. You hit that plateau, but your brain was working in the background the whole time. And then, bam, new skill unlocked.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. But still, motivation is hard, right? Like, how do we actually stay consistent when it feels impossible some days?
That's where it gets really cool. Clear talks about identity-based habits. Instead of focusing on willpower, you focus on who you want to become.
So less, I'm trying to eat healthy, and more, I am a healthy person.
Exactly. It's subtle, but each action you take is like a vote for that identity.
You're literally changing your self-image, and then your habits have to line up with that.
Each time you write a page, Clear says you are a writer, you embody it through action.
Love that. So it's not about beating yourself up for slip-ups, it's the overall pattern, right? So how do we make those votes count? How do we put this into action?
Well, that's where those 4 laws of behavior change come in, right?
Yeah.
Remember those. It's not just like random tips, it's get this neuroscience.
Okay, hit me with law #1. I'm ready.
Law #1, make it obvious. So we were talking about your brain building those pathways, yeah.
Yeah, like carving through the snow.
Exactly. But your brain uses cues to decide where to carve. It's a prediction machine, right?
Yeah.
So if you want a new habit, make the cue for it impossible to miss.
Okay, so like if I wanted to meditate more, I'd like put my meditation cushion right in the middle of the floor.
There you go. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Make it obvious. Or say, you want to drink more water, what could you do?
I'd fill up my water bottle first thing, keep it on my desk, like staring at me.
See, you get it. Design your environment to make the good choices stand out. And speaking of obvious, Clear talks about this thing called a habit scorecard.
Ooh, yeah, I think I remember that.
It's basically like taking an inventory of all your current habits. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? What do you do when you're bored or stressed? You've got to see what you're working with, right?
You can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Exactly. Awareness is key. Which brings us to law. #2. Make it attractive.
Ooh, now we're talking. This is where I need help. How do we make those good habits, like, actually sound fun?
Right. It's about tapping into that reward system in your brain. You got to make it something you crave. So how can you link that habit to something you already enjoy?
Okay, so if I'm trying to, like, write more consistently, maybe I reward myself with a new book every time I hit my word count goal.
There you go. But here's the kicker. The anticipation of the reward. That's actually more powerful than the reward itself.
Wait, really? So it's like the looking forward to it, that's what motivates me.
Exactly. It releases more dopamine, apparently. So even just browsing for your new book could be enough. It's about finding what works for you. And speaking of which, temptation bundling. Ever heard of that?
Okay, that's a new one.
Basically, you pair something you need to do with something you want to do, like only letting yourself watch your favorite show while you're on the treadmill.
Oh, I do that. Guilty pleasure right there. It makes me almost, like, look forward to working out.
See, you're already a pro. Okay, law #3, make it easy. This one seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate things, right?
Easier said than done. It's about recognizing that our motivation isn't constant. You know, some days are just harder than others.
Tell me about it. Some days, even getting out of bed feels like a victory.
Exactly. So you've got to make those good habits so easy, it's almost harder not to do them.
Okay, I like how you think. How do we do that?
The 2-minute rule. Break
Yeah.
it down. Instead of clean the entire kitchen, it's wash one dish. Instead of write a whole chapter, it's write one sentence.
Wow, okay, yeah. Way less intimidating when you put it like that.
Yeah.
I'm ready for law #4. Lay it on me.
Law #4, and this is a big one. Make it satisfying. Remember how we talked about your brain loving those rewards?
Oh, yeah. My brain is all about that instant gratification, especially when it comes to chocolate.
That's why it's so hard to resist, right? Our brains are wired for it, so we've got to make those good habits feel good now. One of the simplest ways, a habit tracker.
I love habit trackers. It's so satisfying checking things off. It's like, look at me, I'm on a roll.
Makes it feel real, right? Like you're actually making progress. And that's what reinforces the habit, that little dopamine hit you get from seeing those check marks. But the cool thing is, Clear doesn't just give you a one-size-fits-all approach. He's all about personalization.
Yeah, because we're not robots. We got to find what works for us, right?
Exactly. He even talks about how our genes can play a role. Like some people are just wired to be more drawn to certain habits. That's where this whole exploit thing comes in. You experiment a little, figure out what sticks.
Like finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Challenging enough to be fun, but not like I give up hard.
Right. It's about working with your brain, not against it. But, even with the best system, we all have those days.
Oh, yeah. We're even with all the best intentions.
The motivation just isn't there. So how do we deal with that? That's when we bring in accountability.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like a buddy system.
Could be. Or even just telling someone your goals so you're more likely to stick to them.
Oh, it's like when you tell everyone you're going to write a book. Suddenly the pressure's on.
Exactly. You're less likely to slack off if you know someone's going to ask how it's going. Clear even suggests, putting money on the line sometimes.
Ooh, risky. But effective.
It can be. That fear of losing something, it can be a powerful motivator. But it doesn't have to be extreme, right? Even just prepaying for a class.
You're more likely to go if you've already paid for it, that's for sure. It's like that sunk cost thing.
Exactly. You're committed. He even talks about, automating your habits, like that story about the first cash register. Remember that?
Vaguely. Remind me.
It was designed so you couldn't steal from it, which basically meant employees weren't even tempted to be dishonest.
Wow, so it's like this system itself takes away the bad choice. That's wild.
Right. And think about how much we can automate now. Automatic savings, meal planning apps, it's all there. Or even just putting your phone in another room when you need to focus.
Out of sight, out of mind, right? Make those good choices the easy choices. Wow, okay, we've covered a lot today, but I think the big question is, why even bother with all this habit stuff? It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why go through the effort?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think, for Claire, it comes down to this. Our brains, they're wired for instant gratification.
Oh, tell me about it. Give me the cookie now.
Right. But we live in a delayed gratification world. So it's like we're fighting our own biology sometimes, building good habits. It's about bridging that gap. It's about designing a life where those good choices, they're not the hard choices, they're the easy choices.
Because it's not just about eating our veggies or whatever. It's bigger than that.
It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our values, our goals, and honestly, it's about that feeling you get when you're actually living that way. It's pretty awesome.
It really is. It's empowering. This has been such an insightful deep dive. So any final words of wisdom for our listeners? What's one thing they should take away from Atomic Habits right now?
Just start small. Pick one thing, one tiny habit. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, all those things we talked about. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about consistency.
Those tiny changes, those atomic habits, they add up. Thanks for joining us today for this deep dive into Atomic Habits. And remember, every choice, it's a step towards the person you're becoming. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.